So
Yeah.
we're just learning the elements and learning how to sculpt them. And it's like pottery, but we're sculpting a house.
So there's definitely a lot of
I love
involvement
it.
with the kids in that process of like the piece of land, the building process. I mean, we had to clear parts of the land. Homeschooling is not this separate thing that we do in our family. We learned that learning is human, and so it should be a natural part of our family culture.
This is definitely a pillar of what we're learning, but we have other things we're doing too. So we do try to keep a balance. They want to still go to different social events and different things. We often will
Mhm.
have on an audiobook and then be discussing. We get into a lot of great discussions
But let's
because
be
we're next to each other.
What if I told you that a story could teach your child more history, science, math, and literature than a year of textbooks? Welcome to the Story Schooling Podcast. I'm Angel Selden, author of Curiouser.
And I'm Sandy Fouts, co-founder of Wonder While Learning.
I am so excited to have Dana and Hannah on with us. They're calling in from Missouri, and Dana is an executive leadership coach, and Hannah is a midwife and herbalist and earthen home geek. Today, we would like to focus on how this family project of building an earthen home has become like a main curriculum for you guys, how through this real endeavor, your kids have learned all kinds of things intellectually, character development, physically, socially, building relationships. So, would you like to start by giving us a little general background of your homeschooling and what led you to building the earthen home? And then we can get into the earthen home experience.
Do you want me to do that? Okay, so we've always homeschooled. We were not homeschooled ourselves. I didn't even know any homeschoolers growing up. I didn't know that was a thing. My college roommate was a homeschooler, though. So that was the first homeschooler I ever met. I didn't know that was, an option. So, and when we first started having children, I was studying a lot of educational philosophies in general and just watching my little baby crawl around and try to learn and put everything in their mouths and trying to just I think I was studying humans and that I starting to realize that we learn and try to acquire truth and beauty and goodness all the time from birth. And then I started wondering, does that ever need to stop? Like where along the way? And I was thinking about my own education and talking to my husband and other adult friends, like just saying like, how was your education? Where along the line did I start like kind of playing the game to get the grade? I was, like summa cum laude or something. I mean, I played the game well, but I like don't remember most of what I learned. When I go through it, I didn't remember a lot of what I learned. Just I could name several teachers that stuck out to me and several subjects that I really liked, usually related to a really great mentor. But when it wasn't coming from my inside, when it was coming from the outside just to get the grade, I often would promptly forget it. Like I would just regurgitate it for the test. And then I was having babies and watching them, like I said, and I just think, wow, look how they're like just enthralled with just doing the next thing and wanting to know the next understanding of what their bodies could do. And I thought that's kind of beautiful. Could that just be how we're designed?
Mm-hmm.
And so and what stops that? And so it was kind of like that journey and reading a lot of Maria Montessori, all different types of people. But we stumbled on Thomas Jefferson education and we really liked it. It was really the principles that I was coming across and thinking about anyway. And it was just this other couple who had put those principles in words, but they were not making anything up. They were just talking about the principles I saw through the scriptures and through great people throughout all time. And anyway, so I think Thomas Jefferson education was really impactful to us. And when we connected with a lot of other people that were pursuing those principles, and that looked in a variety of ways over the years. So we definitely tended towards a lot of like learning in life and maybe would be called unschooling. I don't love that term, but just this just passion driven education. Just my superpower is curiosity. I don't feel like I'm that smart. I'm just really curious. And so I study a lot because I have a lot of questions and that drives me to study a lot. So I just share that a lot with the kids. And we just started building our home in a really curious way, just like asking questions and going on journeys together. And
Yeah, and that just
Dave,
started as you're newly married, you're building something together. And
Mm-hmm.
little did we know that we're building the lifestyle of our family in the process of homeschooling. Homeschooling is not this separate thing that we do in our family. We learned that learning is human, and so it should be a natural part of our family culture, if you will. And we just weave it into all the other parts, and we still try to find new ways to do that, kind of like this earthen home. Try to find ways to make it a natural part of you learn something new, then you go experience it, and then you learn about how the two come together and kind of create something better than just learning or just doing. So,
yeah. And so
Mm-hmm.
whatever Dana and I naturally feel really excited and passionate about. We've woven that into just because those are some of our gifts and interests. So it kind of has built the culture of our home. And travel has been part of that for us. And we traveled, I know you guys know, but we lived on a bus and traveled for 4.5 years. And then a little bit outside of the country. We were in Costa Rica for a little while. And so just travel. So with that, it lended so well to everything we did, including traveling. So we would, wherever we were, we would be learning about that place just because, of course, we're learning about that place and the differences, and sharing and serving people in that area. And so it just, yeah, it's just,
Endless things to learn no matter where you go, what
yeah,
you're
for
doing.
sure. Yeah. We like nature. I think a lot has built into I tend towards plants, and our kids love learning survival skills and things. So outdoor things. And so everywhere we've been, we're always trying to figure out the plants of that area and,
Yeah, flora, fauna, the people, the history, the culture of that area, all the and that applies to every new area, new place that you live. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And so, as far as the Earthen home, my family built an earth ship starting when I was 12. So earth ships are earth ram structures, and they just use a tire as the flexible form for the earth. But they've been around, I don't know, 40 or 50 years, a long time, and they're all over the world. And my family started into that starting when I was 12. And so that, I think that idea that you could do something different and there might be more to look into with even how we build our homes has always been pretty fascinating and inspiring to me. So I've studied that a lot ever since then. And as we've traveled, if somebody has a straw bale or geodesic dome or a yurt or whatever, I'm always going over and interviewing, talking with them. So I've done that for a long time, really most of my life. So yeah, we always hope to be able to do that sometime. And here in Missouri is where we're starting in on that. You can't build an earthen house very much while you're traveling. So
Okay, so I'm curious, how did you propose this to your kids? Has this been something that they've helped with the research and the ideation along the way and then helping build it? So how did this go as far as I imagine like this is like a team meeting or something. Hey, this is what
yeah,
your dad and I are thinking. I don't know.
yeah, the journey as life is, what we saw, we got onto the RV or the bus full time because we all wanted to get onto a sailboat eventually. And that was the original goal. So we're like, how do we do that? I won't bore you with all the details, but the idea was like, I'll become a consultant. We'll get paid more. We'll be able to figure out how to do this financially. I get to do my life passion. And then in the journey of doing that, when we were in Florida and during COVID, our oldest was starting to get to where he was wanting some roots and we were looking for a roots property. Before we did roots property even, we went through a whole process as a family, kind of family council of like, well, what do we want to do? Double down on the sailboat, and we walked through kind of pros and cons, a few different kind of methods of
keep traveling by land. We could probably now figure out by sea if we wanted to keep going. And we had all had
so
that.
we had all these options going, and what it came down to was, no, let's find a roots property together, build a house together, and we all felt committed to that. I mean, there's a couple kids that would prefer the sailboat, this is how that goes. But for the most part,
Yeah.
the whole group wanted to do that. So we started visiting. We were hoping it was going to be on the Florida coast. I was hoping, at least. We came to visit a friend that we knew for 20 years here in Missouri. We're supposed to be here two weeks, I think it was. And we got a billboard answer of the land that we were now building on. And so that's been 5.5 years now. So
Yeah, a bunch
as
of
far
things
as
happened to just show us Missouri was our place. It was definitely not on our radar at all. We're ocean people, so we think God is hilarious because this is really in the exact middle of the United States, about as far as you could be from the ocean on every side.
so yeah,
But we love it. We love it. And I kind of wonder if the earthen house is our sailboat almost like you still have to pay attention to the weather because you're building with clay and lime and you can't build when it's freezing out. And
yeah.
so we're just learning the elements and learning how to sculpt them. And it's like pottery, but we're sculpting a house.
So there's definitely a lot of involvement with the kids in that process of like the piece of land, the building process. I mean, we had to clear parts of the land. I mean, it's along the way, they've definitely been part of like the counseling of it. Hannah is definitely the visionary. She has this passion and ability to envision the home that we want to build and all that. And they definitely are adding their 2 cents here and there of different nooks or ways that we want to
There's all these
design the
places
house.
for we don't have grandkids actually yet, but we're like, well, the grandkids would like to run around. We're like imagining all the things that might happen in this house. Like, okay, and I teach contra dancing, which is like old English country dancing, kind of like you see on Pride and
Like a
Prejudice.
social dance
So
like
I'm like,
this.
okay, well, where would we, if we had a contra dance in the winter, where would that be? And so the house has been sculpted around what we imagine is really important to us and what we would love to do and the gatherings we want to have there. So the nooks and all the little special spaces that we're kind of sculpting relate to that. And so they're definitely
Wow.
part of that. And Dana too, like he's into blacksmithing and leatherworking. And so some of our kids have done that too. And so we're making spots, making sure he has a spot to put all his leatherworking stuff that's still in the core of the home because he likes to be in the social space while he's doing the leatherworking part. So we've sculpted in all these parts of the house that are important to everybody in the family. And even the people that aren't there yet, like the grandkids that we imagine they might like to play tag in this one place, whatever. I don't know.
So how big is it or going to be?
So it's with the greenhouse that wraps all the way around it, it's quite large. It's like 5,000 square feet. But that's because the greenhouse is making it. There's a greenhouse hallway that wraps around
Oh,
the
without
home.
the green.
Without that, I think it's like 328
Yeah, I think
to 3,000, 28 to
yeah, we're
3,000.
estimating 28 to 3,000 living space, but we have a greenhouse that goes all the way around that the gray water will feed the plants and stuff like that. So
Uh-huh.
it's really it's more intentional, kind of a insulative double entry type of a barrier
That's
as
what I
well.
was wondering, if
Yeah,
it's
Yeah,
insulative and
because it
helps
gets
to
very
heat the
cold.
home in the winter.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Help.
So there's more windows on the southern side. And so earthships are, and that's how what I was brought up on it, are all about like understanding the principles of the earth and tuning your house and to to be where you are on the earth. So since we're in the northern hemisphere, that means the southern sun arcs lower in the sky in the winter. And so if you want to have that free heat that God put there for us, you want to have all your mass, your thermal mass floors and your walls, which are the earthen walls and the earthen floors, you want them to collect that heat in the winter. And
Yeah.
anyway, so there's all these principles of understanding like natural phenomenon, which I'm really fascinated by. I call them dandelion answers. So because dandelions are food and medicine, but they're simple and they're everywhere humans are. And so the same idea is like understanding what God has done for us and how we can utilize that in healthy ways to have for our homes and stuff. So yeah, so
So,
we talk about that kind of stuff all the time with the kids.
oh, so
Oh,
where are you at right now in the process? So bring me up to speed as far as
Yeah,
we're still
it's
in the
super
planning, or have
slow.
you started it, or
Yeah, we have started it. We started with a practice cottage that isn't done yet at Avon. It looks like a cottage. It's got its walls and a roof, but we haven't finished the insides. And so the practice cottage, but then we did the French drain of the big house, and then we've started the earthen walls. You can only build earthen walls when it's not freezing at night. So the build season here is between May and like October because you're making adobe bricks basically, which is a sun baked brick or an unfired brick. And so earthen houses are the oldest in the planet, the ones that are still around hundreds and sometimes thousands of years old. In every climate, earthen is the oldest building, and still like over half the planet lives in an earthen unfired brick of some sort. So so I've studied that kind of intensely, and you'll find that the same principles are everywhere around the world. Like so in Morocco versus Japan versus the British Isles, they just use different words for the same thing. They'll have a different name for it, but clay, sand, and usually a fiber material has been used everywhere. The fiber might change because maybe in Asia, parts of Asia, maybe they're using the bamboo or the rice hull, depending what their local fiber are, but the principles are the
Mhm.
same. Yeah.
So we started the cottage as a practice because we hadn't even built a shed before together, and so
Yeah.
and so we wanted something to try. So she has so many different concepts and ideas,
Yeah.
and we hadn't done it ourselves. So we did it on a smaller scale. We've had some issues that we're learning from that. All the mundane parts too, the building process and how do we make that faster, and how much time is this going to take, and so we got that to a certain point, almost dried in. We started the big house because we're like, man, this is going to take a lot of time. We better do them in parallel, keep the cottage ahead.
As long as we're ahead with the cottage, yeah.
And then the cottage had some issues. And so we went as far as they could with the build season because the adobe bricks, they're wet when you lay them, but then they dry. Once they dry, they can handle freezing fine. But when they're wet, if they freeze, that causes issues, and you don't want that as you
Because of
go.
the expansion.
So they wanted to go as far as they could in the build season and then turn over to, okay, how do we get the cottage further down the road, and they're redoing some of the roof and that whole learning process. And so that's basically where we're at. They're still, if it pops up into the 40s and 50s, they're out there, redoing some of the roof parts, and we're going to hopefully get the dried in the near future, and then we can actually heat it with like a wood stove or what have you, and then work on plasters and earthen floors and all the other stuff. So that's kind of where we're
How do you
at.
do the ceiling, the roof? I mean, maybe
You
this is
can
a bit of
make
a tangent, but
You could
Yeah.
be very simple with these. You could just do a normal roof. You could use you could just get trusses and do a normal roof.
okay.
I'm of course not doing anything. I've been thinking about it way too long. So there's a lot of things that I want to do. It's kind of I'm intense. So like there's so many things I've been thinking about it for like 3 decades
But
or
we're
something.
we're
So
doing a reciprocal roof with the Tias and an earthen roof. We're doing it. They're not the easiest ways, but but even that we're experimenting a second time, passing through that as
because
well.
I'm wanting to learn certain things that most people I think you could just put a normal roof. Like you could make it so much simpler on yourself. And even with an earthen roof, which is what we're doing, you could also make that much simpler on yourself and just use the plastic that everybody uses on earthen roofs now. There's a way that people modern make earthen roofs that are quite straightforward. But I'm very curious. And so I'm like, yeah, but earthen roofs have been around in Nordic regions, very cold regions, for a very long time, way before plastics. And if you wanted to, like, if you couldn't just order that from China or wherever we're getting our roll of plastic, how would that be done? And so I know it was done. And so I've, researching the vernacular or the ancient way that was done. And I'm like, oh, what do we have here? Okay, we're standing on a lot of clay. Missouri has some amazing clay. Not everybody who's in it when it's mucky and
Most people don't like the clay.
when you're stuck in your car in the clay, you wouldn't call it amazing, but it's amazing clay and also limestone. Well, how has limestone and clay been used all over the world forever? So this is like the way my mind works. And so it's probably
But she
fun
also
to be
wants-
around and possibly
She also wants
really tired.
a cupola at the top with operable windows so that you can then let hot air go out and pull cooler in. I mean, all the different systems all connect.
So that you
there's
have the free air conditioning, because airships do that often. They'll have a
Yes, they
cooling
do.
tube through the back northern berm, which is the cool side in our hemisphere. And then you have at the apex of the structure or the highest point, you have a way to let that air out. And so the hot air rises through convection. And so if you let the hot air out, then the cool air, if you have low down tubes, they will naturally circulate in and bring in the cool air. So there's a lot of stuff like that I'm messing with. You don't have to do
Some
any of
people
those
do
things.
earthen structure and they put a square. Actually, some of them build the roof first and then build the walls up to it. So
There's so many choices.
so many options.
And you can do things a lot easier than me, but mostly I have to answer questions. I'm curious. So
Well, the question.
Your curiosity is sparking an experiment. It sounds like it's
Yeah.
like, let me experiment with this because I know a bunch of people have done this with plastic. I'm curious about this, so let's experiment with it. Well, the scientific method is a formalized version of how people learn organically. They observe the world around them. They start asking questions about it. That's the curiosity. I wonder about this. I wonder about that. They hypothesize and they test those hypotheses. And so it just that's what it sounds like to me you're doing. You're observing these very inefficient structures all around you. And the question popped into your head, how did people live without this?
Yeah, how has it been done around the world? What is still
Yeah.
standing? What is similar to our climate? Okay, yes, it's been done in some of those arid climates. What about more humid? We're very humid here. What about climates that get very cold and very hot and are very humid? So looking at those different ways that humans have done this, and
A lot of us just accept the conventional as the best, but that's the best based off of how fast you want to build and all these other things versus no, if you're going to build a forever home that you're going to live in forever, like what based off of your wants and needs and longevity or whatever, not that it's the easiest to build, but it's going to last for generations, those type of ideas,
Right.
then what options we have. And then we run the experiments.
Yeah,
So
and what's
it's a
exciting about these kind of builds, it's very accessible to anybody. You just need shovels. The cottage we did with no machinery. We just did with buckets and shovels and a wheelbarrow.
It's high,
and
it's
that,
high
in fact, we didn't
labor.
have water, so we were like catching it from the rain and getting it from neighbor. So we did it like the most
Most of
archaic, basically way.
removing some of the complexities of the system she's building in, the actual structures are high labor and low tech.
Yeah, they're very low tech.
So it's actually fairly meaning that makes it very accessible to just about anybody to build if they don't mind putting the hard work in.
They don't mind
that's
going out and like sweating. And we were kind of looking for something to do hard. The sailboat was attractive to us, not because of we love blue water and beautiful scenery in the tropics. And that's what most people think of when they're thinking of sailboats. But we knew that sailboats break down all the time. They're constantly breaking down because of the because of the salt and the wind and the sun. It's just, you might be pretty out, but where you're at, but it's constantly breaking. You're
Most
also following the currents and the weather, and you have to really pay attention to what God's doing. And you can plan to go over to this area, on this day, but you have to wait 3 weeks because the storms and things come in. So it's like really this is similar in that we really have to pay attention and learn nature and I think of nature as God's fingerprints just all around us. So his principles. And so, yeah,
a
we're
lot,
just
a lot of people that live on sailboats full time, they say, "What is it like?" They're like, "Well, it's like working on your boat in exotic places." That's
constantly
it's
fixing.
it's a lot of work. It's hard, but
So
anyway,
so we wanted
Okay.
to
Okay.
we wanted that principle in our life.
Yeah,
So it's
we're
a good
not
thing.
used to like sweating and working hard and doing that, but also happily. And so we're also going slower because I'm trying to like make sure we're not over there so much that I burst the bubble on my kids. Like I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to, I want them to go away as adults being like, that was awesome. And I learned a lot, not like, I hated that. And I'm never going to
Yeah.
touch dirt again. And so we are
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
like balance that. And it is a tricky balance because it's hard. It is really hard work. So we're really social. Our kids are social. One way we're doing is we're inviting over youth a lot. People often ask to come help, and
They're
honestly, you would
curious.
think that that's free labor, but it isn't necessarily. It usually because we're training and teaching, and I'm doing quality assurance, and so
Yeah. Yeah.
it sometimes takes longer. Honestly, it's not
Yeah.
necessarily the most efficient way to keep moving, but they
Uh-huh.
really enjoy
More
it,
enjoyable.
and I can see my kids are pretty excited to show like what we're doing over there. And I could show you pictures of just all kinds of different kids with mud all over them, just like smiling. They just think it's, they're making mud pies, but like sculpting a house. So it is kind of cool. And I think it's
Uh-huh.
exciting to like young adults, like the teens, to see like, I could do that. Like, they maybe feel with the debt and the things in the world right now, economy wise, it could feel kind of crushing to be like, how would I even ever have a house without debt or ever? But this, I'm like, if you could get land, you could like sculpt that underneath you into a really a neat house. You could do that if you had the will to do it.
Yeah.
You don't mind sweating. So I think it is a
Yeah.
powerful thing to teach.
Well, absolutely. This is it's just so beautiful to me. Everybody involved is learning how to work as a team, how to collaborate. I mean, we're so concerned about, we tend to be so focused on like academics and following directions because that's what we've been indoctrinated is like the most important thing. And they're learning so much intellectually from this. Like you said, learning about the earth, and what better way can they learn about the earth and the principles of physics and biology than through this project? But these skills of leadership and what's actually going to be more important in their lives. We share stories like this on the podcast, and I imagine many parents are thinking, oh, but what about algebra? Like why? Where are
Yeah.
they going to get that? How can you make this your main curriculum? How about this is just a side thing, but we focus on academics because school has made that the number one agenda in a young person's life is acquiring academic knowledge. But what's actually going to benefit them in life more? And that's what I see happening in you guys building this Earthen home and inviting
Yeah.
people to participate, and even just your family working together as a team. These are incredible life skills. So,
One thought I have is there's a lot of like, life is full of there's some mundane things that you end up doing, but we stop every once in a while and talk to the kids and be like, so we're doing this process over and over again. What might make it faster? And then we'll try something. We'll get a different wheelbarrow, a different type of
We're like trying to
shovel, or
systematize things.
like how to systematize like, in that problem solving process of
problem solving,
yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So like you have a pain point. This is a really hard part of this process. How do we make that easier? We went to a mortar mixer. We thought that was gonna be the end of all benefits. When it's working, it's great. When it's not, oh man, then we're delayed in all these days. But like the real life part of all that, and that like looking through efficiencies, how to manage the project, thinking ahead on, do we have enough sand or do we have enough clay? How do we, at the end of the day, we're really tired, but if we pre-prepped for tomorrow, the next day, in this way, it would take this pain away and make that next day so much easier. Making realistic goals versus the like lofty, and you feel discouraged because you never get to the goal. All those finer, practical, real life part of applying the knowledge, it's very real in that way.
This is definitely a pillar of what we're learning, but we have other things we're doing too. So we do try to keep a balance. They want to still go to different social events and different things. And we have we listen to audiobooks a lot. And so since we're doing this often enjoyable sort of monotone work, especially when we get to like plastering and stuff, it's really fun, but it's also, it's not critical thinking for that part. And so we often will have on an audiobook and then be discussing. We get into a lot of great discussions
But let's
because
be
we're next to each other.
let's be clear. They do lots of book reading at home in the home life. While
Oh,
your
yeah,
hands
yeah,
are dirty and all
absolutely.
it's a great opportunity to listen to books that you wouldn't necessarily do otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah,
So keep
so
going. Yeah.
so we'll put on audiobooks and have a lot of discussions too when they're off. And then I've noticed these other teens that come over end up getting into these discussions too. And sometimes we're talking about pretty deep stuff because we're out in the elements and we're out outside, and there's something about it that's
Yeah.
really nourishing. And then, sometimes we just put on music and we're all dancing on top of the earthen wall while we're,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so we try to make it have the variety and just follow kind of an organic rhythm of not only looking one way for sure. But yeah.
Right. I was just true. I'm glad that you pointed that out. It's not like this is your full-time job. You're not doing this 40 hours a week.
No,
And
no,
you're
no.
balancing it with social and lots of reading where
And other events.
they are taking in a lot of knowledge that way. I was comparing it to, or trying to juxtapose it to what's
Yeah.
often an 8 hours at least, especially if you're a teenager, 8 hours a day of just memorizing information versus doing
Yeah.
purposeful work and reading real books
Yeah.
and doing actual teamwork with other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so, yeah, they may take a class somewhere else. Or, yeah. So we have other things going on, but this has been a pretty strong pillar of what we've been doing in the family for
I
sure.
like that, a strong pillar. Yeah.
Yeah.
As I listened to Dana talking, your kids aren't just learning how to build a house. Like, he just listed all the executive principles that I imagine, like, you're taking your job
Yeah.
and all those skills that you have. And it just sounds like you're translating that into teaching your kids all of those skills that you're teaching executive leaders in
Yeah.
work too.
In not in regular academic work like learning algebra and stuff like that, it's underemphasized. There's hard work there too. This is just
Yeah,
so clear, like that hard work, and we're real with them. We're like, yeah, we don't want to go either, but let's go. And then afterwards talking about, man, that felt good to get that much done, or like there's a satisfaction of that hard work. Then you come home and they practice the piano or whatever other thing, go to their social event. We talk about hard work throughout the day and how good it feels to then relax and do more leisure activities, what have you. So it all just connects across. And there are just basic functions of being a good hard worker. I don't care how smart you are. If you don't work hard, if you don't push through the hard parts, like all those key traits of character and learning, if that's not happening, it might be happening tangentially. If it's not being noticed and appreciated, that's a little bit of a concern too. So we try to weave all that in through the whole thing.
Absolutely. I'd like to add that there is something about manual labor and engaging with nature that feeds your mind and your soul in a different way than the reading, even if it's reading great book. I was going to say than academics, but even reading great books, which I value so much, I still think we need all these different elements in our lives.
Yeah.
Whether you're a child or student or an adult, we need nature. We need to interact with nature. We need some physical work, manual labor in our lives. And we need to be always engaged with intellectual learning also, and great stories and great books. We're talking about the results. I mean, like you said, when you're doing algebra, for the vast majority of people who take algebra, there's no real life result from that ever. And for some people who do go into a field that uses algebra, that's very delayed. And so as you guys are building to have this, to see your progress and have it be something you'll actually use in the near future is very gratifying.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, they can definitely see that. I can see when they're showing their friends the different things and talking about what we hope to do in different spaces. And we're really social. So even the cottage, we're really excited to be able to invite. There's people we haven't seen in a while. We're like, oh, we
Well,
could
the
invite
guest
them and
space.
we'll have this guest space. And having the guest space, I started with like a 4-foot circle or a 6-foot circle. I was like, maybe an outhouse. We'll make something small. In some ways, that would have been really wise. But also, there's so many things I wanted to try to do that were like systems that I wanted to build in that I needed to try. And also, it is hard work. And we felt more excited to do this a little bit bigger space that can be a small guest cottage because we are so driven by socially.
Yeah.
That was one of our drives, I think. So
Mhm.
yeah, thinking about what drives you and what makes you come alive and get excited about is helpful to build into the process.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What are some of the things that like your kids have come away with or have said that have maybe surprised you, or things that you didn't expect to come
That's a good
from your
question.
kids?
About the Earthen building specifically,
I'll leave that up to you.
I'll tell you one
like our adult kids.
even when we moved from Minnesota to no, so we moved from Minnesota
This was on the
on the
bus.
bus full time down to Arizona. We were only there about 6 to 8 weeks. And then we moved to Texas. And so my oldest was probably 13, 14 years old. And I asked him, I was like, so, like, what are you learning specifically about moving this often? That in what, about less than a year's time, we had now lived in Minnesota and in Arizona. And now we're moving to Texas, and we had been there probably a month.
So we slow traveled, like usually 6 months or more in each place.
Yeah,
It wasn't fast
but I
travel.
asked him, and he said, Dad, and then, of course he had the reflection of living in Virginia and being raised there mainly, and he was like, no matter where we are, humans are just humans. There's a little bit of difference between each area, like a little bit of culture, and it was funny. I mean, he was culture difference between Minneapolis or Arizona or Texas. There's definitely people have a different culture in each one, but he's like, but we all laugh the same. We all cry the same. And we're talking 13, 14 years old, right? I was
Wow.
like, I have some adults, so I'd love you to teach this lesson too. But so that was a surprising thing that it wasn't intentional for us to live on a bus full time for him to learn that lesson, but it was awesome to hear him extrapolating that. And then secondarily,
Well,
we
can I
have
interject? I have a
yeah, go
comment
ahead.
on that.
Yeah.
Just that really quick, that the thing is, he couldn't have learned that if you just told him that.
Right.
He had to experience it for himself. If you had just said, son,
Yeah.
everyone's alike no matter where you go. We all laugh the same. We all cry the same. It's not the same. You have to learn from experience, or experience vicariously through others through story.
No, that's awesome. Well, and I'll add one other thing. He did also love the little bit of difference. He was like, it's kind of fun that each there's some difference in each one. So his ability to go to just about any type of a difference of culture or people or even family cultures and see the difference, see the same, all that together. Secondarily, we have our oldest daughter. She is very introvert. Hannah and I are both very extrovert. And we've had some conversation. She's lived out of the house now for a couple of years. And even though she lives a lifestyle more of an introvert, she's a creative and nothing like it, we weren't expecting her to live an extrovert life. She loves the skills that living full time on the bus and some of the different skills back and forth that we've been able to learn together in that process. And so her ability to interact with other friends, close friends that are extroverts or introverts, her ability to learn skills that were outside of her natural talents or personality type. She's also talked about that quite a bit. We weren't sure how that would go either way with her. Just that none of that is the book. It's the unintentional things that they're learning through the process, I guess is what I'm getting at.
They said through
Right.
traveling full time they learned to because we really like people genuinely. They're not all in some ways he said it's the same, but he didn't mean it like they're all the same. He still loves the individual and get to know real friends and keeping those friends. And they said that he noticed he could cut through the what is it, that early stuff that you often like take a while to get to know somebody, so you're like, how's the weather, and you talk, he's like,
Like
what's your passion,
pleasantries. Yeah.
like he's just a little bit quicker to like be vulnerable and to like open up to people and help get skills to help other people feel comfortable to be vulnerable and real quicker, like so they could shorten that so that they could get to the real meat and real friendship as quick as possible, because they truly love them people and wanted to get to know them and didn't want to spend too much time in the
Well, when you only live somewhere 6
very
to 12
careful
months,
stuff. Yeah.
you don't have you don't have 6 months to break through the kind of the cordial pleasantries.
Yeah.
When you get straight to
I remember that from you, Hannah. When you introduced yourself, you said, I'm here short term. Like, I don't have time to wait. I want to get to know everybody now. Tell me where you are. Like, let's get together right away. And I want to meet everybody. And it was that, like, cut to the chase and let's be friends.
It's good and bad. I mean, I think it scares. I think some people run screaming, to be honest. But
Yeah.
pretty quickly, you either run screaming or let's just be real. And I want to hear, like, if you're having hard things or all the stuff, like, let's connect really deeply. Yeah. So I don't know that it's always a good trade, but it has been valuable to us, and we love people so much. And so it's been a way that we've been able to serve and share that with others, but also get to know people quicker.
Yeah. I'll give one last thing that I think the
Yeah.
kids have mentioned to us. Resiliency. Just kind of like when change happens, because we kind of introduce change often, then just bouncing back and like leaning into it as kind of a learning opportunity. Not just it's happening to us. It's like, okay, this is exciting. How do we so like
They're like, bring it on.
anytime change happens, like, okay, how do we process this as quick as possible to get the most out of it? A couple kids have mentioned that to us.
And I think advice that could come with traveling full time is you maybe always want a honeymoon and you're never okay with. And we were worried about that because we knew other world schoolers that had said that that's something they were concerned about. If their kids were so used to, they were resilient with new, but you didn't want them just to like always want to be in honeymoon
Like,
phase.
would they get bored? You mean get bored being in the same place? Like, I need a new adventure or something new.
Yeah.
Something like
I'm
that.
not always present in
But
the.
and I don't know why, but we talked to our kids and kind of watched, and we have not noticed that at all. And so I don't know the differences of why that is. Maybe because we were not collecting people just to collect people. Truly love, like I'm like, see Sandy, I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen you guys. I love you. Like you could just stop by and I feel, because I felt a sisterly connection with you, and so, and you too, Angel. So it's like, I think because that was real. Those are real connections that we don't feel are lost. We just don't see those people all the time. I think maybe that's why, but they haven't had a hard time as we've sit still and being in our roots property. They'll still go deep and they just do it fairly quickly, but they don't seem bored, like they wanted to move on.
Even as we lived on the bus full time, we learned very quickly how to find the best, most rich things to get out of any place that we live in. At the same time, we would catch ourselves. We'd be like, hey, let's not think about the next place yet. Let's stay present in the current place too, before we're too excited about the next one. And then once we get there, then we'll dive into that in that same way.
But then in the monotony of like, oh yeah, we're just going to do laundry and dishes and go to the grocery store and live life. Like, how can that be beautiful rhythm too, even though it's just the daily, just doing stuff?
Get more of the mundane as well.
If this podcast was helpful for you, please leave us a review and share with a friend. Until next time, start with stories and everything else will follow. You can learn more about our other education projects at angelselden.com and wonderwelllearning.com.